And welcome back to our next session, Mental Health Intervention. I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator today, Mr. Hamilton Baden. He's no stranger to many of you. He is the CEO of U-Turn Health. Prior to joining U-Turn Health, Hamilton was the Executive Vice President of Sales at Avella Specialty Pharmacy, where he oversaw the growth of the business from the small regional pharmacy to the largest independent specialty pharmacy in the nation. His knowledge and understanding of the pharmacy industry was developed through his professional career, working in various roles for prominent pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. Hamilton is in recovery and is committed to helping others on their recovery journey. So Hamilton, I'm really looking forward to this session, and I'm going to turn it right over to you.
All right, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. So nice to at least see everybody's name on here. I can't see you, but nice to see your name. Brandon and I are excited to be here today. One little housekeeping item. So Karen Philbrick is supposed to be on this call, and she has been sick and then woke up this morning with a case of laryngitis. So I'm going to read Karen's bio to you guys because some of the things that may come out, she might be an expert at, and I want to make sure you know who she is and you can reach out to her if needed. So Karen is the executive director of the Manita Transportation Institute. And if I said that wrong, I apologize. At San Jose State University, leading university transportation center. Dr. Philbrick serves her profession in a variety of roles, including president of ARTBA's Research and Education Division, as an international board member for WTS, and as a four-time appointee to the U.S. DOT Transit Advisory Committee for Safety. So there we go. So I think most of you have probably heard Karen or seen her before, so we wish her well. So here's what the agenda is today. Brandon and I are both gonna tell a little bit about our own personal journeys, why this topic is very meaningful to us, and what we do in our day jobs to help support people that are struggling with mental health, behavioral health issues. So I'm gonna go first, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Brandon. He's gonna do the same thing. And then Brandon is gonna take a few minutes to really I guess the best way to look at it is give you an overview of what we're dealing with. What do the statistics show? How bad is this? Is there hope? Is there not hope? And I'll go ahead and spoil the party. There is hope. So that's the way this is going to go. Then we've asked in advance for some questions and some topics that you guys would like us to discuss, which we're going to read those out and go through them at any time during this presentation. And Brandon, I can see you, so nod your head if you're in agreement. If you disagree with us, if you want to argue with us, if you want to ask specific questions, pop them in the chat. Brad from ARTBA is looking at those, and he'll interrupt us, and we'll take them on. So as Matt said, I'm Hamilton. I'm the CEO of U-Turn Health. What's really important in my story is not the success I've had in different businesses in healthcare or any of that stuff. Really, what I'm about is, at 42 years of age, I finally got up the courage to raise my hand and ask for help. I achieved all the success that I achieved, was married, had 3 daughters. I was a good father. I never cheated on my wife, nothing like that. I went to work every single day, but I was a raging alcoholic and addict every single day of my life. And I hit it. Probably most of you will probably say, oh, people knew. People really did not know. They thought I was the life of the party. And what I would always say is I got sober the traditional way, which is I raised my hand, I asked for help, I went to treatment, and I got better. All of you that are on this call that know anything about substance use disorder that say that's an anomaly. It doesn't happen that way. But the interesting thing about my story is I knew I had a problem when I was 23, but it took me 19 years to get the courage and raise my hand. And unfortunately, that's what most people do. And so at U-Turn, we've developed a very innovative solution to try to help people make that first step easier and then keep them on that journey. And I'm sure some of that will come out. Some of you know us for that. But guys, construction needs help, and we're here to try to support. I know Brandon feels the same way. So Brandon, I'm not going to go on and on about myself. I'm going to turn it over to you, and you take it away for the time being.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's a privilege and a true honor to be here with all of you all and to talk about this subject that's all too important to the construction industry. Personally, for me, having been in construction for 27 years and holding many different roles, and having been successful, that's not, again, that's like Hamilton said, that's not really the important aspect of this conversation. I have struggled with mental health issues through my entire life, from childhood through adulthood. I was first exposed and started using drugs, if you will, at the age of 11, 12 years old was my first encounter with marijuana and cocaine, and then it just spiraled out of control there. But I did the same as many can relate to, hit it well for the most part, and found myself in some really dark places and reached out for help and turned my life around with the help of others. And so, as Hamilton said, there is hope out there, and we just need to be willing to take action on that. Where are we as an industry? What are we really dealing with? Well, you look at the societal numbers, they're just completely out of control, from whether it's the 10,000 people a year we lose to drunk driving or the 42,000 plus vehicle accidents. But when you start looking at suicide or overdose from the opioid epidemic that we're facing as a country, the numbers are outrageous. We're well over 50,000. It's estimated this past year and this coming year for suicide deaths. The drug overdose is hitting six figures. How does that relate to the construction industry? You might be surprised, and we're looking at numbers. If you step back and look at OSHA's Fatal 4, which is so many of us are focused on, fall struck by caught between electrocution. We lose about 1,000 people a year to that. And although one death is tragic and is really unnecessary and we need to try to prevent, but 1,000 people a year, it's been that way for a few decades now. There's some ebb and flow, but the suicide number, we're seeing numbers as high as 7,000 potentially, depending on the research. Completely unsustainable for our industry. The overdose numbers, I've seen research that says 14,000. I've seen 17,000 in construction. Again, unsustainable numbers for a workforce that is really shorthanded, if you will. So we can't just stand by and stand idle on that. You break it down demographic wise, we're losing on average a rate of 65 per 100,000 male workers in construction to suicide alone. The societal numbers, you back up, it's about 15 to 16 per 100,000. So we have a huge difference there in swing. Female workers in the construction industry, 25.3, 25.5 per 100,000. Again, not sustainable, almost double the national average for suicide. And we have a real issue. And as Hamilton said, there's definitely hope. And the industry has taken a step forward. Some years ago, AGC of America, AGC of Missouri, multiple other associations and chapters and organizations have stood up and said, hey, enough is enough, and rallied, partnered with organizations like U-Turn Health to take action. So I'll kick it back to you, Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. And guys, I wish I could see everybody, because this is the point where I kind of always say, look, I think everybody now has heard this enough, and I want to commend as an outsider. I mean, I didn't come from the construction industry, although my dad did. As an outsider looking in, I commend what you guys have done, because over the last 4 years, I mean, I think, Brandon, you've been in this for a while. I bet you 10, 15 years ago, you never thought we'd be having a conversation about this. And 4 years ago, you guys started that, and you did awesome stuff. But I also think people are starting to get numb to it. They hear it over and over again, but we have to take action. And it just gets us in a standpoint. If we're not going to take action, then we're going to have to live with where we are today. And I don't think anybody wants that. So we have to give ourselves kudos, but at the same time, we've got to look at this through a different lens. So I'm gonna open this up. So the first comment or question that we got was for us to comment on safety culture and the criticality of physiological safety as a component of safety. And Brandon, since you're the expert here, and then I'll chime in with some thoughts when you're done, but you go ahead and take this one first.
Yeah, so the safety culture, the construction industry has this persona of we're a bunch of macho, tough construction workers, male or female, doesn't matter, and suck it up, rub some dirt in it, right, get to work. Safety is relatively new to a certain degree. You consider how long OSHA's been around, since the 70s. That's kind of still maybe not in its infancy, but it's kind of past the toddler stage, if you will. So we still have there's been a lot of progress and growth there from a culture standpoint, but we still see these outliers and these pockets of the industry that is just in complete denial when it comes to this particular topic, let alone safety as a whole. 4 or 5 years ago, I had company owners and leaders say, We don't have a mental health problem. We don't have an opioid problem. You talking, they were using terminology that isn't regularly used anymore. And they're like, what do you mean druggies? I don't have druggies that work for us. And it's like, no, these folks have a substance use disorder. They have a mental health, crisis or something going on in their life that's causing them to come to work and be distracted. And that's really what we really need to focus on are those signs and symptoms in regards to those individuals. As an individual that struggled with it, not only am I a survivor from the standpoint that I've lost folks, I'm a survivor from an attempt standpoint as well, where I've attempted twice in my life. And speaking from experience, we cover that up. But there are signs that people visibly show in many cases, not all, but in many, that they're struggling in one way, shape, or form. And we really need to be vigilant to that. How does that impact culture? How does that impact the job? I have story after story of individuals that have gotten hurt, severely injured in some cases. Sometimes it's just a minor or it's a near miss situation, that when you start talking to them through the investigation process to find out what really happened, what's going on, you discover that they're struggling with something outside of work, or they're struggling with an issue at work that physically they may be present, mentally they are not. They are totally checked out. And that's an issue. That's a real safety concern for the construction industry.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, you know me well enough to know that I'm very transparent and I always ask crazy questions. And since I think you're the same way, do you mind if I ask you a personal question about what you just talked about?
Yeah, I'm an open book.
So when you went through those two times, those two challenges, did people come up to you afterwards and say, I knew something was going on? Did like people kind of know and then talk to you about it? Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, there were some folks that mentioned that, but they didn't think it was that severe, and then there was the others that didn't. They're like, I had no idea you were going through this, right? So I've seen and personally experienced both sides of that coin, if you will. And usually it's, well, I knew they were going through a divorce, or I knew he was struggling with this, or he's had a couple of bad days, kind of going through a funk. Well,
Yeah.
we just blow it off as if, and kind of are numb to it, as you mentioned earlier, and don't really stop and take the time to ask someone if they're okay, and provide or offer any kind of resources or support. And then there's the folks that are like, I had no idea there were no signs and symptoms. And I think from that aspect, go back to the original question of the safety culture and just the culture of the industry, Hamilton, and for the folks on the webinar, we, generationally speaking, and the industry, we're conditioned. You come to work, you got blinders on, right?
Yeah.
Keep your head down, do your job, don't make waves, right? Mind your business, don't get personal, don't talk about XYZ, whatever that may be, and mental health and suicide is definitely something we don't talk about, or at least we haven't traditionally. And
Yeah.
because of that, it's easy to say, well, I had no idea, right? I didn't see that, I didn't notice. Well, we're not taking the time, right, to
Yeah.
really notice our people.
Well, that's why I asked you that question, because I've seen both sides. I've seen one side where people say, yeah, we didn't notice. And I agree with that. We're not taking time. Because if you and I are best friends and something's going on with you, Rich and I always tell this story. Rich had a struggle with his daughter, and he was in the car with me and he gets a phone call, and I had no idea who it was, but I immediately noticed that he changed after that phone call, and I asked him about it. So that's one part. And then the other part, I think sometimes people notice it, but then they're scared of what to do and what to say. And that's why I really wanted to bring this up. Guys, if you've never heard this before, it has been completely disproven that if you bring up suicide to someone that's struggling, that's going to cause them to die by suicide, to carry through with that action. So you're not listening. And I always look at it very simply. If Brandon and I have been buddies since we were 3 years of age, and I see him acting differently, or he tells me he's struggling, all I'm going to do is put my arm around him and tell him I love him, and we'll figure out a way to get through this. That's exactly what everybody would do. Start there. I'd rather start there than not do something and God forbid something happens.
Yeah, and you look at the makeup of the industry today and the transient workforce, the crews, and sure, there's a lot of turnover issues there. It's a different conversation, but these individuals in the industry that work for you or working alongside you, you are with them more than your own families, right? You become best friends, work best friends, right? Work besties, if you will. I mean, how many of us have a work wife or a work husband or something like that? You know, we get to know each other to a certain level, but there's still certain things that we just don't talk about, or we just don't cross that line. But we notice, and we should be taking the time. And I hear time and time, oh, I don't have time for this, you know, or oh, we got work to do, right? We can talk about it after work. Suck it up, and we'll go have a beer after work. Well, that's you know that's not going to work. At the end of the day, we need to be pausing in that moment and asking, hey, are you okay? And as Hamilton said, asking those questions, asking about suicide, or just flat out saying, hey, are you or have you considered suicide or anything along or you know, killing yourself, whatever the case may be, it knocks down that wall for that individual. That fear of being judged, that fear of asking for help, it completely obliviates that and allows that person to open up and say, yes, or I have, or maybe not right now, right? And start that conversation.
No, totally agree. One thing I wanted to add to this, and I love this question about safety and how this plays hand in hand. One thing I don't think we do enough and talk about enough is the family. And a lot of people are like, well, why are you bringing up the family? It's the individual that struggles. Well, and last time I checked, a lot of the construction workers in this industry are dads and they're married. And so they have family. And we've seen issues, and Brandon, I think you know this story. We had a guy on one of our companies on one of the sites. He fell off of a lift, 30-year track record of safety. When they did the investigation, they asked him what happened. Well, he had gotten a text from his daughter about 5 minutes earlier, and she was dealing with major depression. And so he just forgot to, you guys know better than me, the safety line. He forgot to attach it because he was
the lanyard.
So we've got to think about this as, because if people are struggling like that, there is going to be a safety issue, a physical safety issue. So any comments on that, Brandon?
Yeah, no, it's being aware of just the whole demeanor of your crew, your employees that work for you, or if they've verbalized it at some point that maybe a month ago or a few weeks ago they're going through some kind of hardship, whether it's a financial hardship, divorce, loss of a loved one. I had a gentleman that was on an 8-foot ladder and was reaching up into the drop ceiling, a lot of sharp edges, and he had cut sleeves down below on his cart, but he didn't climb down and put them on, and he was moving around, came down and sliced his forearm wide open, almost to the bone. And after the discussion that entailed after that in regards to the investigation, it was discovered that the night before he had to admit his uncle, who had been basically his father figure and had raised him his whole life, had to admit him into ICU because he was had a terminal illness and was dying. That gentleman had no business being at work, none whatsoever. He was completely checked out and totally focused on that clean safety record. And it's those opportunities to check on our folks when they're struggling or they're going through something that could really save either their life, save their, you know, an injury, you know, so many other costs associated with that, and find them something else to do, or just basically have a conversation and be present in the moment for them so that they know they're not alone. They know that you care, can change their whole outlook and day.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, next comment or question. The construction community has done a great job actually, of getting people to acknowledge there's a problem. Why are the numbers so bad, and why are they continuing to get worse? Why are we not seeing a change in the number of people getting better? Brandon, this is me all day long, but do you want to take a stab at it first?
Yeah, you know, so I'll kick it off with, you know, it's a lot of it is just the entire demographic of the workforce and the structure of construction. You know, I would say we are the best workforce that I know of. I'd put them up against anyone. We find a way to get shit done. Sorry for my language there, but it's truth. You know, we are innovative and dedicated and loyal and committed individuals, but we take on a lot of stress and pressure, and the stress of the job, the long hours away from your family, or the transient workforce where you're out of town for months, weeks and months and years at a time, plays a role. The tolerant culture of drinking and substance use and the partying aspect, right, plays a role. There's a lot of issues. We're starting to see some change. You know, we're starting to see a shift in cultures where, you know, I've seen companies say, hey, we're not paying for alcohol anymore. You know, your card, your company card can't pay for it, or we're not providing it at company functions. You know, and that's a small step forward, if you will. But I mean, I could go on this subject, and I'll kick it back over to you, Hamilton.
Yeah, Brandon's right. And, when I first got into this a few years ago, first responders and veterans were the ones that were hardest hit. And then construction rose to that same level. And why is that? Exactly what Brandon said. You guys are all badasses. You get shit done. It's this. And for whatever reason, we've determined in this country that if you have a mental health issue or you have a substance use issue, then that's not cool. That's kind of weak and you can't control yourself. But if it's a physical issue, then it's okay. So we've got to figure that out. And we're going to give you some tips on that because I've seen some of the questions here to talk about. The other thing we have to acknowledge is the way we treat this causes a lot of people not to want to get help. And honestly, guys, this is not a sales pitch for U-Turn. You guys can do this on your own. But what U-Turn really came up with, this idea of lived experience. And here's why. If you raise your hand and go to HR or tell someone that you have a drinking problem or you've got a mental health issue, what is the outcome of that? You're going to have to go see a clinician. You're going to have to go see them routinely. Most likely they're going to put you on medication or whatever it is. There's a path that you have to take. It's much worse than substance use disorder because there's one path, and that path is you have to quit today, you have to quit forever. And at the end of the day, if you can't do that, we can't help you. And there's clinical tools that can help you do that. It is without question, Brandon, you can speak to this. It's the scariest thing you'll ever do in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, at 23 years of age, I knew I had a problem. I was not raising my hand because I knew the party was over. And so it's this idea of having another solution that will get people started on this journey, however small those steps are, that will lead them to that promised land we want them to lead them to. So Brandon, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, you know, I'll say this, and Hamilton, you can probably speak to it as well, as much as you and I both speak. I'd hate to even try to figure out how many people we've been in front of and how many events we've spoken at or webinars like this we've done, but the lived experience aspect and some of the storytelling, I can't tell you how many executives, C-suite level folks, owners of companies in the construction industry have come forward after I have given a presentation or a workshop or a talk, whether it's at a conference or in a smaller setting for their company specifically, and the room's cleared out and they pull me aside, emotional, tears in their eyes, and saying, man, that was my childhood. That was my upbringing in the industry. And I can't tell you how much I relate to that. Or it was like I just relived everything and I've never told anyone about it. That is powerful. If a leader at any level can come forward in the right way and share their personal struggle or stories, and that they're to show hope and success, it's a game changer. The workforce looks at the leadership levels, believe it or not, as like these, you know, just these folks that carry so much weight and power and influence. And if you can show that, hey, I'm a human too, right? I've been there. I've struggled with this, that, or the other. I'm in recovery. This was my experience. You know, you're going to relate on a whole nother level, and you're going to see a group of individuals, a large group in many cases, come forward and say, hey, that's me, or hey, I need help, or I know someone I work with that's struggling right now. What resources does our organization, trade, company have to help these individuals? There's a lot of fear out there about coming forward, because as Hamilton mentioned, historically it's always been, hey, I've got a drinking problem, I have a substance use problem, and you're fired or you're cut loose, or if you don't follow XYZ steps perfectly, you're gone. And that's not helping the situation at all. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, Brandon, is I think that people don't know what to expect. They see, they see an alcoholic on the movies or TV shows, and there's this perception that you get into recovery and your life stops and it's not fun anymore and it's not this and that. And one of the things I always say is be authentic. Like I am, for lack of a better word, I'm probably the most authentic person in the world. There's probably a ton of people that hate me for that, and there's a ton of people that like it. But at the end of the day, I'll give you guys all an example that Brandon may pass out when I say this. But when you get into recovery, they teach us all these really cool sayings like one day at a time and keep coming back. There's one that I will never utter, and it goes like this. Well, I'll tell you guys. It said, my worst day sober is better than my best day drunk. Now, I get that, guys. My life today is a million times better than it was 13 years ago. But the reason I will not utter that statement is because I would be a ball-faced liar if I told you that. Because I had some incredible time shit-faced. Brandon, I'm sure you did too. And as soon as I say that, if you're on this call and you're struggling, you're like, oh shit, I want to talk to that guy because he gets it. And that's really where we need to get to. We need to talk about this in a different way. And I'll just give you one other really cool thing that you can do if you're a leader or anyone in your company. Every time I speak, I ask everybody to raise their hand if they've had any experience with this, one way or the other, either personal or with somebody there, somebody close to them. And 50%, 60% of people raise their hands. And I said, if you would be willing to help another coworker, keep your hand up. Those are the people that are willing to talk about it. Those are the people that are willing to help people in your organization. That's where you start. And I don't know if you've ever done that, Brandon, but it works like.
No, I absolutely do. The 50 to 60% I feel low because I've really I've been averaging 90 plus, and I asked the question, who's been impacted by overdose or suicide professionally or personally, and and everyone's hand goes up, and I ask them to keep it up and look around, and to prove the point that you're not alone. I have a whole message on that you're not alone, but we convince ourselves we're alone. We come to work, we go home, we're in our communities, our professional workplace, and we don't talk about these issues, but we'll come to work and talk about that we lost our grandma or a family member to a heart attack, or that we lost them to cancer. Well, just like they didn't commit cancer, they didn't commit a heart attack, right? That just sounds weird. People didn't commit suicide. They died from it, right? Just like they died from an overdose. But because there's this thought process of it being taboo, we can't talk about it. Well, everyone's probably been impacted by cancer or heart attack or any other unfortunate disease or illness 2 and 3, 4 times over. We'll talk about that, but we're not talking about these other issues that honestly, at the end of the day, are taking our industry's workforce lives at a much higher rate. Yeah, and I'll add one other thing to this, Hamilton. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken and I've had individuals come up to me afterwards, again, emotional, tears running down their face, and they're some of the toughest, gnarliest construction workers, badasses, if you will, that have been around forever and have shaken my hand and said, we should have been talking about this 30 years ago. Thank you.
Yeah, just
there is a desire and hunger for this.
Yeah, just to let you guys know that Brandon's not making that up. I was actually in Pittsburgh. We did a stand down at the new Pittsburgh International Airport they're building. Same exact situation, 1,000 workers. I gave a quick 15-minute presentation, and then we had a breakout where it was optional. And I figured we may have 20, 30 people. There were 150 people, standing room only. One of the iron workers actually got up and told his story, which no one had known. But here's the craziest part. Brandon, there was a 320-pound dude that looked like he could have crunched me in a minute, walked over to me and literally just started bawling on my shoulder. And here's why. His brother had struggled, and he committed that he would call his brother every single morning until he got better. And once when he called his brother, he didn't answer the phone. He had overdosed. The guy had never told anybody that and literally just let it out on my shoulder. These people want to tell their stories. They just are too scared to do it.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, it's really just a matter of being present for individuals. They just want to be heard and seen, and that may seem kind of odd for a lot of us. Like, well, we're adults, we're not children. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we can't be present enough, I guess is how I would say it. Individuals just want to be heard, they want to be seen. And if you can just pause for 60 seconds, sure, that might turn into a few extra minutes or longer, and be present for that individual that's struggling, or maybe they voiced it or they're exhibiting signs, and ask, hey, are you okay? Put your phone down, square up, make eye contact, let your body language show that, hey, I care about you. I really want to know the answer to that question that I just asked you. And listen, and not respond with, I've been there, done that, got a t-shirt, right? I know what you're talking about, man. You'll be fine. Just listen and let it out, right?
Yeah.
It can be a game changer.
Love it. We did have a question from someone on the webinar. Workers suffering of overexertion and pain use opioids to control pain and continue working. How efficient and effective would it be stretching and warming up before start to prevent pain caused by muscle or skeletal disorders? I'm not a physical therapist, but it sounds like a great idea to me. Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah. No, well, yeah, let me look, good disclaimer, not a physical therapist, not a medical doctor. There are a lot of organizations out there and job sites and owners that are requiring stretch and flex, activities before projects. Here's what I'll tell you about that. That's only going to work if the workforce takes it serious, right? You're really going to have to explain to them the benefit of it and really teach them how to do it properly. And there's some basic stuff out there you can do. My personal experience, I'm a believer in it. I've seen it work. I stretch every morning to the best of my abilities. I'm a little stiffer than I'd like to be, but it does play a role, and it has a positive impact to help prevent soft tissue and various other ergonomic type injuries. It's also one of those things where the industry needs to be talking and working alongside their work comp associates and doctors, and trying to avoid the go-to of, hey, we're just going to prescribe muscle relaxers, or we're going to prescribe some kind of opioid painkiller for those, for the workforce, and really trying to use alternative medicines or over-the-counter Tylenol and Advil, et cetera, and ibuprofens to use those first to avoid the actual opioid. Everyone's addiction or ability to be addicted is going to be different, and you're going to have individuals, one use, one serving, one dose, right? And they could be hooked. Others, it may take more, and others maybe not at all. So it very much ranges. The data for opioid use, the construction industry has more prescriptions for opioids than any other industry. We're at a rate of 25%, so 1 in 4 of your crews has a prescription. That's just a prescription. I personally believe, just from grassroots conversations across the country, the use aspect is higher than 25%. Who's going to tell their friend no, or their work buddy? If you are working with someone and they've got a prescription for an opioid or a muscle relaxer, and you get hurt, you can't afford to take off work. You don't want to turn in the injury because you're afraid of work comp and that whole stigma and issue, and you're going to be on a list, which doesn't exist. So you look at your friend you're working with all the time, say, hey man, can I get one of those? Who's going to tell you, who's going to say no to your friend? So I think the use rate is actually higher than that 25%. I've been asking the question for 4 years now, and have stood in front of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people over 4 years. Who's going to tell your friend? Who's going to say no? As of 2 weeks ago, I've had 3 people now stand up and say, I have said no. Everyone else has said, well, I've given it out, or I've asked for it. And those 3 people that said no, each one of them had a personal story related to an overdose, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I love this question, not because we're physical therapists and we think we can talk about stretching, but more it's about the opioids. And I want to share some personal information and some studied information I've done. And Brandon, you may be able to speak to this. The interesting thing about opioids is, after a certain point, those medications actually cause pain. And you may not know that, but what happens is, and I want to, if you've never been on opioids or you've never been addicted to heroin, I want to share something with you. These people are not loving every second of their life. It is not this incredible high that you're like, this is the greatest drug I've ever done in my life. Your body becomes dependent on them. And I think opioids are good medications when needed, as long as you follow certain guidelines. But unfortunately, after a certain period of time, your body will become dependent on these. And the reason people don't come off is because that is the worst hell on the face of the earth. You may not know that you cannot die traditionally from a coming off of heroin or opioids, but you will wish you were dead because it lasts about 35 days. The good news is there are ways to get through that. There is medication available to help people. And the interesting part, and I won't go into the neurobiology of this, but after a certain amount of times, those drugs actually keep you in pain. And countless stories, including my own, that once I got off with those, I haven't had pain like that ever again. And Brandon, I don't know if you have personal information about that, but there is a way to help these people besides being on opioids.
Yeah, the science, I'll just add this quickly. The science behind it is really interesting. If you're an informational type person and you really want to geek out on some of this, some of the research is really fascinating. It's all very unfortunate, but it is extremely fascinating how the body and the brain works and wires itself to, to the regular use or expectation of having that substance in it. And Hamilton's absolutely right. Your body will actually feel as though it's in pain if you're not using it, and that just starts a whole ugly vicious cycle, unfortunately.
Awesome. All right, anybody else? I'm gonna pause for a second. I don't see any other questions in here. Brad, you didn't have any more come through, did you, that I'm missing? All right, let's move on. So this one I think is,
Sorry,
Brad.
give me a minute. Can you give any examples of how to start a conversation on this topic with a group of coworkers?
Yeah, that's a great question because that fits right into our next last topic for the most part, but we can always come up with more. Taking action, what does it look like? And what is something a leader can do starting now? So Brandon, I'm gonna let you take this one and then I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah, so I think the best thing I think anyone can do, any organization or individual or leader, is educate yourself. Educate yourself on not just what's going on in the industry and our current state, but more importantly, what resources are readily available. Does your organization or company offer an EAP, an employee assistance program? If you are working with or you employ union members, do they have a member assistance program? Who is covered by your EAP? Is it everyone on the job? Is it salary? Is it all employees? What does that look like? And then what does that resource offer? Does it provide resources and mental health care and guidance and substance use disorder, et cetera? I highly recommend auditing those EAPs and MAPs annually just to check on what it's providing. In regards to just approaching the conversation, there's so many ways to go about this. Little shameless plug, AGC of Missouri in America worked with the academia world and created the industry's first toolbox talks some 6 years ago in regards to mental health, suicide prevention, and construction. We have a 12-month program for that now. It is free. Your company can download it, co-brand it, use it. It's all on the website. We can make sure Brad has that to share out to ARTBA members as well and everyone on the event, on the webinar today. Just having that simple conversation, I have seen and heard of stories where a foreman or a superintendent has used one of those toolbox talks to a crew. And I mean, we're talking about everything else, right? We're talking about safety. We're talking about gloves and hard hats. We're asking you to break it up and talk about something else, this subject specifically. I've seen of these situations where that's occurred and then somebody comes forward and has gotten help. And it is, for all other explanations or other ways to say it, it saved their life. Or they've come forward and mentioned a family member. Hamilton talked about that. They're struggling. There's a struggle at home. Most EAPs and MAPs will provide service for anyone in the household a lot of the times as well. So really educating yourself. There's a plethora of trainings out there. I'm sure Hamilton will talk about some that U-Turn Health offers, but there's a lot of great trainings, a lot of online trainings that are free, that are fantastic, and more that are being developed as we speak that'll come out, I'm sure, in the coming months and year, that can really help with that. I would start educating yourself would be the first thing, and then having the conversation. And you can just start with a simple toolbox talk, or bringing someone in like myself or Hamilton, or there's countless other people across the nation that can talk on this subject and help you.
Yeah, and I want to add a couple things. So first of all, I don't know whoever asked that question, but thank you for asking it. I don't know if you know me or not. I like to make things very simple. If you're a leader in your organization, or even if you're not, go to the leadership and say, I have something very important that I want to share. And literally set up a town hall meeting. If you can't do a town hall meeting, go to the job site and just say, listen, I heard these two guys speak recently. It was something that touched my heart. And I want to share a story that I've never shared with you guys before. I have a daughter that has autism or has bipolar disorder. And it's a struggle for me every day. And this is what I've dealt with. Or, hey, years ago, I used to drink too much and I still drink, but I don't. Just share your story. And I promise you, and I'll bet anybody on this call $1,000. So take me up on it. If you do that and you don't have someone in your organization say something about how awesome that is, I'll pay you $1,000 because it will happen. You will have people come up to you afterwards saying, I'm in recovery. I never told someone. My daughter struggled with the same thing. That is the first step. Your workers need to know that you're a human and that you care about them and that this is a place that we can discuss these things. That starts the momentum. Brandon, anything to add on that?
No, just that I absolutely agree. And I will, well, I will say this. So just a public service announcement or warning for everyone. When that process begins, you're going to have to take action. You're going to have a group of people, much of your workforce is going to look at you as a leader or at the organization and say, now what? What are you going to do? Right? You just shared the story, you just shared the stats and what's going on in the industry. They're going to, we're struggling as an industry, clearly. What action are we going to take as an employer, as a company? You're also going to have folks that are going to come forward and say, hey, I need help. That's me. Right? So be prepared for that. You're also going to have a group of individuals that are going to hang back because they're going to want to watch and see, are those folks going to be retaliated against? Are they going to be fired? How's the organization, the company, going to support them? What's that look like? And then in that case, if is provided it's all positive, there's none of the negative aspect of it where they're getting fired or retaliated or held back, you're going to have another wave of individuals in the future come forward after they're comfortable nothing's going to happen to them and say, hey, I've got a problem too, in many cases. Or they're going to identify someone else that they know of that they work with that's struggling.
Yeah, and guys, I want to hit on one last thing. It is time to take action. It's beyond time to take action. We've talked about this enough. We need to do something differently. If you have an EAP and they're not doing what you need them to do, find another solution. We at U-Turn, again, this is not a sales pitch. We will help you do this yourself. We will help you through our program. We will guide you in other things. Give you an example. AGC came to us and asked if we would create specialized training on these topics. We actually already have that on our platform. I firmly believe that we train to safety every day. We should be training on this at least once a year. And it really does two things. Number one, it gets people trained so they start to understand and get educated about this, but it also starts to let people know that it's okay to talk about. And the more that you do this and the more that you say it's okay, the more that people are going to feel comfortable. And that's really what will change this. It's getting people to know that it's okay not to be okay. We're all in this together and we're going to get through it. And that's where the change really occurs.
Yeah, you can, a quick Google search, AGC of America Mental Health. The first link that's going to come up is the Mental Health Task Force that I co-chair. And we have a ton of resources on there, a lot, and some of it's just marketing. And this I struggle with this a little bit, but having a good marketing campaign and messaging campaign around this topic does help with the stigma. It truly does. Just, whether it's a poster or a job site banner, we have a ton of them that are related to heavy highway work and the construction industry, as far as vertical construction as well, commercial. So just co-branding that, putting that on your job sites, we've put stickers in Johnny on the Spots or Porta Johns with QR codes. It's a private space where, let's face it, everyone's on their phone anyways. They can scan some information or take a photo of a number and have that available to them. We're seeing hard hat stickers. AGC started what we call the Hope Coin, and it's just a little plastic poker chip looking deal, but there is hope, and it has a message of hope. It says your story isn't over. Hold on, pain ends is the acronym for hope we came up with from my own personal experience. And the fact that they're not alone, and it has the 988 number. I've seen this coin replicated 30 times over. I've seen QR codes on them, tons of information in just a little plastic device, or item that you can hand out to someone and let them know that you care. You don't even have to say anything. They're leaving them on job site trailers, putting them on people's trucks, or laying them around the job site in some cases. And I have story after story how a hard hat sticker or this coin has saved somebody's life, where it has been given to someone or they saw the message and it just happened to be at the right time. It resonated with them and they made a decision not to end the pain. And they're still here today. And I won't go into all that, but I have countless stories of how that's occurred. And that gives me hope. And as Hamilton said in the beginning of this, there is hope. We just have to take action and be present for one another.
100% agree. Brad, anything else that's popped up in the chat that we need to address?
No, that looks like it is it for now.
All right, and so guys, I know that Brad has these, or not Brad, but ARTBA has these squeezed together, so we want to give you some time back. Brandon and I will close up just with some statements from our standpoint, but if you've got another question, throw it in the chat real quick. We'll be able to answer it. I just want to say thank you to ARTBA for giving us this opportunity, and I know I speak for Brandon, and he's probably going to say the same thing. We do what we do to help people. At the end of the day, I built a business around it, and we're excited about helping people. But at the end of the day, if you guys need anything, if you just need advice, if you have a worker that you just don't know what to do with and you're at your wit's end, or you're stressed out personally, I know that my information should be in this presentation. If not, Brad will get it to you. You can always text, email, or call me. Brandon, I'm sure you feel the same way. We're just here to help.
Yeah, without question. I have a full-time job as a safety professional. This has turned into what started out as kind of like we didn't know what was going to happen with it. We just needed to do something, and it's almost turning into a full-time job as well. But if there's anything I can do personally, or AGC of America, or my local chapter, we have a task force. We have ambassador roles under the task force, and we'll be accepting applications for those individuals that want to get active and take action in the industry. Would be glad to talk to you about that. But if there's anything I can do personally, whether it's just being an ear to listen, that's fine too. My cell phone and email are public, and Brad's welcome to share that out with anyone that wants it.
Agreed. So Brad, we'll give you guys, and Matt, we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to regroup for the next one.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that incredibly important session. We really, really appreciate it. Folks, we'll be coming back here in 9 minutes. So session will end in a second, and then just make sure you follow along the next link. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.